So here we are again. We are back a little bit ahead of our schedule, but I'm sure it won't be an issue to anybody. So, as I announced, the following presentation has a title, Looking Back, what can we learn about the importance of emotional intelligence in project management and leadership? And this presentation is going to be presented by Lysa Morrison. She's a joint CEO of a new disruptive strategic HR management company, the Shiny Happy People. She's also an accredited NLP master practitioner and trainer, an ILM accredited professional coach, and a proud TEDx speaker. Lysa is delivering workshops, executive coaching, group facilitation, consultancy, and keynote talks to a diverse range of organizations and industries across the UK and Europe for the last 15 years. So I'm really positive when I say that we have really great presenter today with us. And above all of this, she's a mom of three, lives by the sea, and loves music. So when everybody lives by the sea, they love music and they're kind of shiny, happy people. So today, Lysa will guide us through a fun and interactive session where she will learn us how your own subjective perception of a person or situation can directly affect your skills, behaviors, and effectiveness. I should learn this. Through exploring how we think and feel, we can gain control what we do and say to maximize our potential and become better project people. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, overcome challenges, and create win-win situations on your projects. So I'm really looking forward to hear your lecture, Lysa. So please take the floor.
Thank you. Let me just make sure I can share my screen. Let's see if it's working okay. There's that. Can everybody see that? Is that working okay?
I'm seeing it, so I'm probably speaking.
Yeah, it's very good.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, you're going to have to excuse me because I'm going to practice something that I've never done before. I hope I've got this right. I want to say firstly, hvala ti to Stanislav. Have I got that? Hvala ti? Did I say that right?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yes. Thank you, Stanislav. You used pictures that I could understand. It was wonderful. I love wicked problems and design thinking. And of course, I love Star Wars. So believe it or not, I could understand so much of it and it was brilliant. So hvala ti, Stanislav. I really appreciate it. And if I can do the next one correct, I hope so. Zdravo, everybody. Have I said that right as well? I'm looking for thumbs up on the cameras. I'm hoping it's up and not down. Thank you. So normally, if anybody's seen me speak anywhere across Europe before, I always try my hardest to learn a little bit of the language before I speak. And this time I didn't get the chance. But next year, if I hopefully meet you all properly next year, I promise you I'll be able to speak so much more than hello and thank you. That's my promise. So it's good. This talk is going to be in English. I will try and speak slowly. I know I speak fast, but at any point, please just wave on the screen, put your hands up, stop me, and I will try and slow down or explain better English if that helps. So, slight change in a little bit of what we're going to talk about from what Una mentioned. We're going to talk about the importance of emotional intelligence in project management and leadership. So the theme is the same, but we're going to take a little bit more of a retrospective look. We're going to look back at the last 12 months to see what can we actually learn from what's happened in this, what we are terming the world's biggest experiment in working from home, because never in the world of work have we had anything like this global pandemic where the vast majority of people unexpectedly had to virtually all work from home. So what we're going to do this afternoon is this talk's going to give you a brief introduction as to what we've learned from this, and most importantly, how can we leverage this new world to create happy, high-performing teams that deliver successful projects. So we're going to take a look at what have we learned in this new world of work. We will look at the role of performance management. We'll chat about the keys to success And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we are going to look at the importance of project leadership, and I'll explain why I call it project leadership shortly. So let me just make sure that this is working. Fantastic. Let's take a look first of all then at what have we learned in this, from what is this new world of work. And the statistics we're going to talk about have just been recently published in Forbes. And we're going to look first of all at the big pieces of research that some organizations have done to find out what has been the impact on our employees of everybody working from home over this last year. So let's take a look at Slack. First of all, Slack, huge organization, they actually surveyed over 9,000 knowledge workers from across the globe. And interestingly, they found out that only 12% of people want to go back to working full-time in an office, 100% of their time in an office. 70%, 72% of people actually want a mixture of office and remote work. 52% reported an improved work-life balance, which is quite incredible, with only 18% reporting a decline in work-life balance. And trust me, as a mum of 3 children, I know that feeling of what it's like trying to work when there's children rushing about behind you. So I can understand where that figure came from. 46%, however, reported improved workplace satisfaction, with only 20% of people reporting a drop. So some really interesting figures come out of Slack there. So let's take a look at IBM. IBM, who are another huge global employer. 75% of workers want to continue to work from home part of the time. That is huge. And let's take a look as well at the Boston Consulting Group, where we've got 60% of workers surveyed in the USA, Germany, and India want flexibility in where or when they work. So these are huge, huge figures, some really interesting data coming out of some massive surveys that have been going on globally. But some more interesting facts. What we're actually learning from this is that most employees have felt no change in productivity, but they are saying that we are generally happier and more satisfied. So what does this actually mean? Why does it matter? Well, that's because all of the research is telling us that employee engagement, so in other words, staff that are really motivated, they're really involved, they're really happy to be working in the organizations they work for. Employee engagement drives a range of business outcomes. What we know is that higher employee engagement increases staff retention, it increases productivity, it increases creativity, and ultimately customer satisfaction. What we also know is that high levels of employee engagement can actually grow your operating income by up to 19% and your earnings per share by up to 147% compared to those organizations that have low levels of employee engagement. So in other words, employee engagement boosts the bottom line. But let's just go back to the statistics that we've just looked at. What we've just heard is that most employees are saying there is no increase in productivity. Now, that is a really interesting paradox because we're saying employee engagement and satisfaction is up, but productivity is staying the same. So we're going to find out more about what we can do about that in a moment. But the other things that all of these surveys also showed us is that there are some challenges that are being brought about by all this remote working. We have got some colleagues who are reporting isolation and saying that that's affecting their emotional and mental well-being. We've got employees reporting difficulties in maintaining relationships. And we've also got some evidence that shows that performance management, people are saying performance management is more difficult, but when you look at the research, this isn't necessarily for the reasons that you think. So I'm going to come on and explain that in a little bit more detail shortly. But just as there are challenges, there are absolutely some opportunities here. Because if we leverage these happier, more satisfied staff, if we use all this research about employee engagement that tells us it increases productivity and therefore the bottom line, This is telling us that we're not leveraging this current situation where we've got happier, more satisfied staff. So there is an opportunity here where we can improve our productivity, we can improve our bottom line, we can improve our project success. And so that's what we're going to look at throughout the rest of this talk. How do we do that? But in order to do that, I think what we need to do first is to take a look at what is the role of performance management. Why are we talking about performance management here? And that is for a very important reason. Just before we get into that, let's just take a quick look at the Wikipedia definition of what is performance management. It's a process of ensuring that a set of activities and outputs meets an organization's goals in an effective and efficient manner. And that can focus on performance of an organization, a department, an employee, or the processes in place to manage particular tasks. Now, I'm hoping you're all sitting out there thinking, that definition sounds very familiar to me. And so it should, because it's not a million miles away from the definition of project management. So project management is the process of leading the work of a team to achieve goals and meet success criteria at a specified time. The primary challenge of project management is to achieve all of the project goals within the given constraints. Now, that is more or less the same as our definition of performance management. It's to meet an organization's goal or to meet whatever the project is in an effective and efficient manner. So there are lots of crossovers between performance management and project management. So if we take a look at an academic view of what is performance in business, I'm going to first of all refer you to one of my favorite academics in this area, that's Boxall et al. And they state, so we're talking about performance management, so let's understand exactly what we mean by performance. What we mean in this context is Boxall et al. They state that performance is reached when you have a combination of ability plus motivation plus opportunity. So let's put our project management hats on, or our managers' hats, or leaders' hats on, whatever our role is, and go, how do we actually apply that in the real world? Now, the first question that you're possibly thinking is, well, motivation, what a big word. It means so many different things to so many different people. So let's take a look at my favorite definition of motivation. And this is by a guy called Daniel Pink. And he states that motivation is autonomy plus mastery plus purpose. So what we're beginning to do here is build a framework of what is it that we need to put in place within our project teams if we want to reach performance. So let's take a look at that framework a little bit more closely. To reach performance, we want highly engaged employees who love their job. Let's pick apart that framework a little bit more. We want to make sure that our project staff, our individuals, our teams have the ability to do their job. Now, that means they must have the right skills, the right knowledge, the right talents, and I'm going to come on to that later. They have to have the right tools, and they have to be in the right environment for the role. Now, interestingly, let's take a look at the stats that we looked at the beginning of the talk. People are loving their new environment. We've got an opportunity here to build on that. People are feeling more satisfied in this environment. We need to build on it if we want to accept that this part of the ability section is part of the components that create performance. Let's look at purpose. As individuals, we all need personally to understand what is important to us and why. We also need, as part of a team or part of an organization, we also need to understand what is expected of me. And we also need to have a shared purpose. I'm sure you've all been in teams where there are conflicting priorities when you're trying to work on a project, and what you find is the job doesn't get done because you're not on the same page. Let's take a look at autonomy. And this is something that I really want to draw special attention to because it's really important. What we know is that autonomy is part of motivation, and motivation is part of performance. Now, autonomy means that we have to trust and be able, so for us to trust people and be trusted. Now, when I mentioned there's an issue with performance management, but not necessarily in the way that we might think it, that is actually because we have got lots of reports from organizations across the globe where people are stating, so this might explain, this is one of the reasons why the productivity bit might not be where it should be, because what's happening is, because people are working remotely, their line managers are finding it difficult to trust what they are doing. So they are asking, what are you doing? When are you doing it? I want to see proof. I want you to fill in these sheets so I know what you're doing, when you're doing. Now, what inadvertently is happening is we are removing autonomy, which impacts on motivation, which impacts on performance. We have to be able to leverage this opportunity, but that means we have to trust our staff. We have to trust our staff that if they are doing a great job and they're getting the job done, then surely that's what's important. So allowing them to self-track rather than rather than enforce systems on them where they have to report what they're doing, when they're doing it every 5 minutes, it's counterproductive. So that leads us on back up to opportunity, because we have to make sure that we give people the opportunity to perform their role, use their strengths. And we're going to talk about strengths quite a lot, actually. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what I mean by strengths. Strengths is things that you love to do, things that you're good at, things that are, you want to practice, you want to do more of. They're the kind of things that you tend to do more and more often because you enjoy them and you're good at it. And the more you practice it, the better you get. So strengths aren't necessarily skills, because we've probably all got skills that we don't really enjoy doing. I'm very, very good at washing the dishes, but I hate washing the dishes. So I certainly wouldn't call it a strength because I'm not passionate about it. So when I refer to strengths throughout this talk, I'm talking about things that we are good at, that we really enjoy doing, things that we're passionate about, things that we can get better at. Teamwork. We need to give people an opportunity to belong to something, to be part of a team. And we know from some of the statistics we've just looking at, people are struggling and feeling isolated, working from home. They need to feel part of something, and we have to give people the opportunity to grow. And then lastly, mastery. We need to enable people to understand what is good performance by them, to be able to get better at what they do, to be able to be recognized for what they do, to be able to focus on their strengths. Now, when we put all this together as a framework, we've got here the opportunity to really improve performance, to really improve productivity. But we need to apply that in this new world of work. So what I'm going to do with you, I'm going to share with you some really I've gone too far. Some really interesting things about what we can do about this. Because at the moment, traditional performance management measures everybody against the same set of standards. I don't know what it's obviously different. I work across many organizations across Europe, and everybody does it differently. But most organizations have their performance management systems or paperwork, whatever it might be, and we assess everybody against the same set of criteria or competencies, with some roles having a few separate ones, but everybody else is exactly the same. So in other words, we are looking for all-rounders. We want everybody to be great at everything. Quite often there are very poor links to organizational aims. They're often competency-based, which means it's based on skills. Remember what I've just said about washing the dishes? Can wash the dishes, but I don't love washing the dishes. They tend not to be strength-based. They tend to focus on 360-degree feedback. So we tend to have other people rating our individuals. And I'm going to speak shortly to explain that. Actually, that speaks more about the rater and about what they think is important and what their beliefs and values are. It's not really a true reflection. And nearly all performance management systems focus on weaknesses. They look at you're good at this, you're not very good at that. So your plan for the next month is to work on these things. The majority of performance management systems do that. And for the rest of the talk, I'm going to show you there is a much better way we can leverage these fantastic stats we've got from people working from home and improve performance, improve productivity, and get project success. So let's talk about what are these 2 keys to success. Firstly, now thank you to Una, because you did a great description of talking about emotional intelligence and why it's so important. But emotional intelligence actually is the top predictor of an employee's success. So 90% of top performers, regardless of what role they're in, are also high in emotional intelligence. With, on the flip side, only 20% of bottom performers are high in emotional intelligence. This is really, really interesting and important statistics, because what it's telling us is those people who are self-aware, they have the ability to identify and understand their own feelings and tendencies. They can self-manage those feelings and behaviors. They have the ability to manage and adjust their emotions and their behaviors productively. But not only that, from a personal competence perspective, they've got the social competence side of emotional intelligence too, which means social awareness, the ability to accurately pick up others' emotions and perspectives, and then effectively manage those interactions and relations to create the win-win outcomes that Una was referring to in the introduction. Because our project managers, our line managers, our leaders, or the colleagues that we sit next to who are most influential on our projects, you will tend to find the really successful ones are really good in these skill sets. So emotional intelligence is such an important skill to have in relation to being a high performer. But there's something much more than that. And that brings us on to our second key to success, and that's managers. Because perhaps the most important factor in your company's success is who they employ as managers, whether that's line managers, whether that's project managers, or any other form of leader or director in your business. And the reason why is that the relationship that employees have with their manager, like I say, whether it's a project manager or whatever, has the most influence over performance, retention, stress levels, and growth. And the impact, the reason why that we have this impact on performance is directly linked to the manager's self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation, social awareness, and relationship management skills, or in other words, their emotional intelligence skills. So these two components directly impact the most on the performance of the team and the employees around them. And we begin to see a picture of how this builds up and why all of those things that we mentioned in that framework are so important. So if we want to look at high performing teams, the majority of the stuff I'm going to cover now comes from the absolutely groundbreaking research that Gallup did, where it was the largest piece of research on employee engagement in the world. And what they did was they identified a few aspects of the employee experience that exist disproportionately on the highest performing teams. Now, there are a longer version of this. There's a 12 statement version, but we are going to look today at the 8 aspects and 8 very precisely worded items that validly predict sustained team performance. Now, you'll notice when I show you them in a moment that it's not directly relating their manager or their team leader. It's not directly relating their company. It's asking them about their own personal feelings and experiences. Because like I mentioned before, where there's an issue with 360 feedback, is to get good data, you have to ask people about their own experiences. Because you ask somebody about, if you ask your colleague to report you, they've got all of their own filters, all of their own experiences, all of their own beliefs and values, all of the different things that they find important. So you're not going to get an accurate view all of the time. Because when you rate others, it often says more about the rater rather than the person that you're trying to give some information on. So let's take a look at these 8 high-performing team indicators. Number 1. So by the way, what we do is, and I've done this in so many organizations, and the results are the same time and time again in terms of being able to predict the highest performing teams against the lowest performing teams. It's fascinating and so accurate. It's a brilliant tool. And look how simple it is. It is 8 questions, and all you do is you ask your team members or your employees to rate, give each one a score on a scale of 1 to 5, whether they strongly disagree with the statement or they strongly agree. That's all you do. So let's take a look at the statements. Number 1, I'm really enthusiastic about the mission of my company. Number 2, at work, I clearly understand what's expected of me. Number 3, in my team, I'm surrounded by people who share my values. Number 4, I have the chance to use my strengths every day at work. Number 5, my teammates have my back. I hope that translates okay. It means that they support you. Number 6, I know I'll be recognized for excellent work. Number 7, I have great confidence in my company's future. Number 8, in my work, I'm always challenged to grow. It's as simple as that. So let's take a look at them in a little bit more detail, because interestingly, what happens is the odd numbers are what we call the best of we. So these things, all of these statements here on the odd numbers deal with a person's experience created in their interactions with others on the team. So in other words, the communal experience of work. This is all about what we share as a team or as a company. And then the odd numbers, this is what we call the best of me or the best of I. And these deal with the individual experience of work. What is unique about me? What is valuable about me? Do I feel challenged to grow? And what's really interesting is what we know is that from the best managers, the we experiences and the me experiences together, these are the things we need to thrive at work. These are the things that help us and do feel great at work, be happy, be engaged, and therefore it directly links to our performance. Great thing about these 8 different things is they're very specific, they're very reliably measured, and they're personal, so you can't get it wrong. What we've got with the best of me and the best of we is local individual experience entwined with a local connected collective experience. So the best managers have the ability to meet these 2 categories of needs for people on their teams at the same time, because the most important experience at work is the experience of team. And the biggest decision a company makes is who they appoint as managers and project managers. So let's go back to the data we looked at before. We've got people that are happier working from home. They're more satisfied, but they don't feel like this element of being able of taking care of their performance management and being connected to others is working very well. What it's telling us is we need to ramp up this best of we. We need to make sure that our employees who are working remotely, that they still feel a very, very valid and important part of the team. So what do we want from our managers? We want you to make us feel part of something bigger, show us that what we're doing together is meaningful and important. We want you to make us feel like you can see us, connect to us, care about us, challenge us in a way that recognizes who we are as individuals. So in summary, we need a sense of us all together whilst recognizing our uniqueness. We want you to magnify what we all share and lift up what's special about each of us. And we want you to help us to connect with each other in this new world of work. We begin to put this in place, and what we're doing is we are leading to better projects. So what I want you to do is just have a think very quickly. Answer one of these questions, or just think about these questions. What tasks do you enjoy doing the most in your role? What are your top 3 strengths in your current role that you use every day, or that you could put to good use if you had the opportunity? Or what are your top 3 strengths in general, inside and outside of work? And what I'd like you to do is just quickly think of some of those things and think, how could you use this information to improve your performance? So in other words, are you allowed to use your strengths every day at work? What happens if you did? If you are using your strengths every day at work, how does that impact on your performance and motivation? And what I'd like you to do is just very quickly type some answers into the chat box. I'm just trying to see how we can get I don't know, Una, you might have to help me. I can't see any chat responses, so you might have to read some out for me if that's okay. So I've got, how are you able to use those strengths at work? What happens if you do? Does it improve your performance?
Is that a question for me?
Oh, no, sorry, for everybody. And if everybody could just put their answers in the chat box.
Okay.
But I can't see the chat box, Una, unfortunately, so you might have to read out what people are saying. Just a couple we just need a couple of answers to see what people think.
So we are waiting now for them to type. Emrach says empower people.
Great. Yeah, excellent. How does it, so do you get an opportunity to use your strengths at work? I'm interested to know what people think.
I'm definitely in a position to use my strengths in my current role. And yes.
Great.
Yes, I'm using them as a manager and as a project manager, let's say. Mirza is saying both from my team and from my company.
Brilliant.
and it's problem solving for them.
Great, great. So what about, has anybody had experience when we're not allowed to use our strengths? What happens to our performance? What happens to our motivation then? Anybody got any experience of that they wish to share?
When you're not using your strengths.
Yeah, when you don't get the opportunity to use your strengths.
Well, that's kind of like a lane. It's a frustration.
Mm.
Drops that these are the answers, but also from my perspective, causes frustration. Another answer says.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for that. Oh, sorry, we're going to say something there, Una?
Yeah, I just wanted to say when you have a high motivation to provide and some additional effort to some work, and you are not in a position to use your strengths, it's kind of like, yeah, it's demotivating and frustrating,
It is.
and you don't feel the ownership of the project.
That's right. That's right. And that links back to autonomy as well. And
Sure.
what's really interesting is you'll be
Step back and
surprised.
plan how to do it.
Pardon, Una?
Emrach says it's step back and replan how to do it.
Great, yeah. And I'm hoping, because I know Emra's talk that's following, he's doing a workshop about high performing teams. So I'm really hoping that these things, will really complement each other, because what's really important is we take these things for granted. And there are so many, often when I'm brought into organizations, I'm brought in where there are problems. I'm very rarely brought into organizations when things are going really well. And quite interestingly, I'll often start off by doing the survey of these 8 questions. And it's incredible how easy it is to spot when we are not giving our employees an opportunity to do these things. So thank you for that, everybody. So just moving on then, there is a killer question, believe it or not, out of these. And we may have just given a clue from the question I've just asked you as to which of these 8 questions are the killer questions. So which is the single most powerful predictor of team performance and employee engagement? And I'm sure you've got it already. It is number 4. I have the chance to use my strengths every day at work. And what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to show you some stats from a team, and you'll see a really interesting picture of what happens when we get, when this is in play. It is such an important one, and it's something that we don't necessarily think of when we allocate roles and tasks to people in our projects. We don't stop always and go, who's great at it, who loves doing it, because it's, it's both of those things. So what I'm going to do is share you with, this is the kind of thing that I do in organizations all the time. This is an organization I worked in recently. And this was their best. There was a team of 5, and this was the best project team that they had. So if you take a quick look at this, one of the things I'd like you to draw your attention to first of all, is let's take a look at that killer question. I have the opportunity to use my strengths every day at work. And if you take a look at the average on the bottom, you can see they're all pretty high scores, apart from this one and perhaps the last one. So here we are looking at some of the key areas that are really important. So difference between the best of we and the best of me. And what might stand out for you is this person number 2. So bear in mind, this is the best performing project team in this organization. So let's take a look at number 2. If you were going to guess, Una, maybe you could help us here. If you were going to take a guess without knowing anything about this team, this organization, what might this story be telling you, do you think?
You're talking about the team 2?
Person number 2. This is one team of 5.
Okay, it's a person. It's a person.
This is the top performing project team in this organization. This is their results. So I've just highlighted person number 2. So without knowing anything about this organization, what might these results be telling us, do you think?
I don't know. I see that the strengths and the feeling of grow within the organization, within the team, and the possibility to use daily strengths are one. So probably this person is not so much motivated to perform at his or her best, because I think those 2 things are really important: to use the strengths and to feel that you have the ability to grow. So if you don't feel that, it's really unlikely that you are going to feel yourself as a part of the team.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, this individual was the best performer in the whole organization.
No.
Yeah, and you'll never guess. I'm sure you can predict what happened.
And I'm sorry, Lisa, because people are putting some answers in the chat. Is that the person is happy that two is going to leave soon.
Well
Is
done.
engaged, no motivation. She will leave the company, leave if they do not motivate her or him. So
Brilliant. She left.
she left.
She left. This is the highest performing team. One of the reasons this was the highest performing team was she was brilliant. She did all of those best of I, and she wasn't a manager on the team, but she was the person that did all of the best of I and the best of we. And she kept putting suggestions forward. She reached a peak. She was very good at what she did. She reached a peak. They didn't give her an opportunity to grow. She left. So this is to kind of show we take for granted sometimes just because somebody is performing well and they are the best person and they're a happy person at work. You can see they've got some high scores across the rest of that. If we do not take care of the best of me, if the manager does not take those things on and take care of those things, we will lose our best people. So this is a very, very simple way of taking a look at the difference that these 8 questions, you can see straight away with this lady, what she didn't have was the autonomy to be able to input these great ideas because she was the best there. She had better ideas that, that we could be used elsewhere. She didn't have the opportunity. She didn't therefore grow. It affected her motivation. She left. And these are really important factors that we must put into place for our employees. I'm only going to very briefly go through this stuff, but
Sorry to interrupt you, just to say that the people on chat are saying that this is great insight and thank you, Lisa. And people are saying like, wow, and it's impressing. And just briefly to remind, there's like 5 more minutes left to our end of the lecture. So
yeah.
Just to point it out, so please continue.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very briefly, I think everybody gets access to all these slides if I've got that right. So what I've done in the slides is I've put quite a lot of background information that I'm going to just cover over at a high level so that you can read up on a bit more detail of what I'm going to talk about, because I knew we didn't have much time. But basically what we do is we focus too much. We forget, so this lady was called Isabel. We forget how important working and growing on people's strengths are. Everybody overlooked Isabel because she didn't have any areas of weakness. And the thing is, the way our brains work is that as we get older, as we develop from birth, our brain creates neurons and synaptic pathways. When we're a child, there is millions of them. And as we grow, the more we use, the ones that we use, they stay and they grow more complex. The things that we don't use, they just peter away. So in other words, we are very unique. We all have our unique network of connections. These become very strong as we get older. And what that basically means is when we try our hardest to get people to learn new areas, so if you can see on this picture of the adult, the black, they're the things that we're good at, the things we do all the time. They can grow a bit like a tree. We can grow buds on those and it can get better and better. When we focus on our strengths, we can grow exponentially. But the gray areas, the areas that we're not good at, the things that we traditionally are weak at, that our performance management systems try and get us to get better at, they can very rarely get better. Because how much of you can be changed? Not a lot. If you hate meeting new people, can you learn to love breaking ice with strangers? You probably can't. And the reason for that is people don't change that much. So when it comes to performance management, when it comes to picking people on your projects, don't waste time trying to put in what was left out. Try and draw what was left in and really focus on strengths, because when it comes to improving weakness, it's better to give your staff some attention than none at all. You'll get more engaged staff if you give them some kind of performance related feedback and that you do performance management. But if you focus on weaknesses, if your performance management system, if your feedback is based on what they're not doing so good at, you'll perhaps get 2 engaged employees for every 1 disengaged. But if you focus on the strengths, the things that we were just talking about, the things that nobody focused on with Isabel because she was so good at what she did, if you focused on the strengths, then you'll get, for every 1 disengaged employee, you'll get 60 engaged employees. It's really, really important. So when it comes, there's no limit as to how much you can, I'm sorry, there is a limit as to how much you can rewire the brain. It's better to help them discover their hidden talents and teach them new skills. Now, the next few slides, I'm going to go straight past because they're all for you to read later. It's all about the difference between skills, knowledge, and talents. And what I want you to do is you'll be familiar with stuff about skills. You will be familiar with all the stuff about knowledge. I want you to pay particular attention to talents because talents are different. There are 3 types of talents. 1 are striving talents that explain the why of a person, why they do what they do. 1's thinking talents, explain how a person thinks. And the last one is relating talents. They explain the who of a person. These 3 things, the things to do with talents, are things to look for in projects and in recruitment, because we tend to recruit on skills and knowledge. We forget about talents. It's talents that enable you to understand what people's strengths are and build on them. And it's something that we really miss out on when we look at performance management. There's some stuff in there about the difference between a non-talent and a weakness that you'll find useful. And if you want to find more information about this stuff, I'm a massive advocate of the Clifton Strengths Finder. It's stuff that came out of all of that Gallup research that said in certain types of tasks, especially to do with projects, you look for a certain set of talents. So there's information there for you to read up a bit more on that and learn and Google more stuff on that. It is fascinating. Because the thing is, skills, knowledge, and talents combined are really important. And we must understand the difference between them if we want to have high-performing teams. So let's just start summarizing. Keys to success. The good news is that emotional intelligence, management, and leadership are skills that can be learned and developed. They're not innate talents. Some of us are naturally good at them, but there are still skills that can be learned. And when it comes to the importance, sorry, my things are going all over the place now. The importance of project leadership. It is to remember, regardless of your role, we are all leaders. So think about project management, project leadership. We've understood the relationship between performance management and project management. So now let's think about project leadership, because the true value of a leader is not measured by the work they do. A true leader's value is measured by the work they inspire others to do. So when we start combining all of the stuff that we've talked about in this talk, you too as project managers can inspire your people to do the best of we, the best of I, and have great performance. And why do so many leaders perform below their potential? Because they don't know themselves, they don't understand others, they don't see the landscape. So in other words, they have poor emotional intelligence skills. So performance management, let's think of improvement. Unlock the potential of each and every employee for great projects. There's some guidance there on exactly how to do it. It's taken from the work of Marcus Buckingham, who's fantastic at this stuff. And do not forget to make sure that in your projects, you make sure that your staff have got the best of we, the best of me, and you get them to utilize their strengths in your projects. So I think we're probably exactly on time. So we might not have time for questions. I'm here. You can still chat or email. Una, it's over to you.
No, it's okay. Lysa, please stay with us because there are some additional comments, and I'm definitely sure that some question will pop up soon. Adam said, give Lysa one more time slot. So, I see that I find this entire lecture really interesting and useful to me too. I'm your master of ceremony, but I'm doing my own business. So, anybody have a question for Lysa, maybe?
I know you're going into break. I'm happy to answer questions during break if people want to. Whatever's easy.
That being said, thanks, Lysa. It was a great presentation. It was really. So, any other raised hands or something? Let's see. Anybody? Or they were just enjoying it. They don't have a questions.
Well, I've put lots of additional information in the back end of that presentation. So
there is Alida, and Alida, Alida,
Yeah.
yes.
I hope you can hear me. I really rarely raise my hand, but I just, could not to this time. And first of all, Lysa, thank you so much for this, I would say, insight rather than presentation was really, really good.
Thank you.
I was so happy that you mentioned, 3 elements of motivation from Daniel Pink, and his book Drive was one of the things that really changed the way I see leadership. And one thing maybe that we didn't mention is how important that intrinsic motivation is, especially in the industry that we operate, which is all around being creative. So we're not working in some industrial line where you need to produce a product from A to B. You are working with a lot of companies out there. What would you say, how, moved away are we from that carrot stick method to more of creating environment where you can actually provide that intrinsic motivation to shine?
Yeah, I think so. Just to explain that what we mean by the intrinsic motivation is that extrinsic motivation is where you are going, if you achieve this performance, you'll get this much bonus or money, or that that's what Alida means by the carrot and the stick, that that if you achieve whatever performance, we might pay you, or if you don't achieve it, you might not keep your job. So these are external things that are influencing us, rather than our intrinsic motivation, which is I'm doing this because I love it. I'm doing it because I love working here. I'm doing it because I'm using my strengths and I'm passionate about what I do. And in the organizations where I see that the most, and you can literally measure it by those 8 questions, where you see that's quite widespread across the organization, there is a direct correlation between line managers and emotional intelligence. I think, how far away are we from that? I think we're quite far, but what I am seeing, and I'm thrilled and thankful, so thankful to the PMI, because they keep asking me back to speak about emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is getting so much more recognition in the workplace now. And where there is emotional intelligence, where companies are investing in emotional intelligence skills in their management and their leadership, that's where we're seeing a direct correlation with improved performance and people loving working there, being happy to work there. So we're not there yet, but we're seeing emotional intelligence on the agenda, and that's what's important.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alida. There was another raised hand, but it's lower now, so there is no other raised hand and no other questions, but additional comment to great presentation. Thank you from Alenka Gruden. So thank you, Alenka, for the comment. And I see that they're all mesmerized. I feel.
Not falling asleep, I hope.
No, they're not. No, they're not. So if there is no other question, then I have to thank to Lysa for this great presentation. And as Alida said, it's more insight, but it was really interesting, and it posing the questions of all our management and leadership models, where we fit in, what are the questions that we pose to our employees and to ourselves, and what is the best of we and best of I in order to achieve all the good performance, which is the ultimate goal of doing business, I would say. Emrah said, Lysa, you're awesome. And I hope that we will all say that exactly sentence to Emrah after his presentation.
I've seen Emrah, you will. I've seen him work. He's fantastic.
Okay, great. Lysa, thank you very much. It was so refreshing and inspiring.